This is the African turquoise killifish. These tanks they're swimming around in may seem small, but having so much water to swim in is in fact a luxury for these fish. That's a 5-star hotel you're living in, buddy. In the wild, killifish live in harsh, rapidly changing habitats. Rain pools that only appear during the rainy season in East Africa. In these pools, they hatch, feed, become sexually mature, and reproduce, all within a span of a few months. By the time the rain pools dry up, they die. Their short lifespans make them the perfect candidate to study aging and age-related diseases.
On today's menu, killifish brain sashimi. Yeah, not really lah.
I'm dissecting this killifish for its brain in the name of science, and at the request of researcher Dr. Ko Tong Wei. He's basically a pro at it now, having done hundreds of such dissections since he started research on these fish in 2019.
Alright. It's not very clean, but oh my goodness, I removed the fish brain. We just went through this process of opening up this little animal and obtaining its brain. This brain, why is this so essential to the work that you do?
So right now we are studying the effect of dietary restriction on the brain.
What do you mean by dietary restrictions?
Dietary restriction, you can see as an umbrella term for many different kind of fasting methods.
Yeah.
Intermittent fasting would fall under that umbrella. For the experiment we did, we was feeding the control fish 3 meals per day. Then for the dietary restriction fish, we fed them 1 meal a day.
With your observations so far, what have you been able to tell with restricting the killifish dietary intake?
What's interesting was for the fish with the restricted diet, it seems like a subset of genes expressed in a pattern that is actually more similar to young fish than old fish. It's sort of like they went back in time. A subset of genes that behave this way are expressed in a special cell type in the brain called the microglia.
Microglia?
Yeah, and the microglia are like the gardeners of the brain, nurturing and pruning.
Imagine that your brain is a garden, and that your brain cells or neurons are plants. Healthy neurons are represented by flowers, whilst unhealthy neurons are weeds. In a young brain, the microglia gardeners are precise. They prune the weeds but leave the flowers alone. When the brain and the fish age, however, these gardeners become less accurate. They cut away not just weeds, but perfectly healthy flowers as well. The garden becomes over-pruned, leading to neuroinflammation in the brain, which is associated with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. However, when the fish were put on dietary restriction, Dr. Ko observed that the microglia gardeners, even in old age, were precise, removing only the weeds and not the flowers.
Looking at these fish, I struggle to understand why what you study in them is applicable to like humans. How are you making these connections?
The cell types that make up the brain in the fish are quite similar to the cell types that make up our brain.
Means what happens to them as you're studying it will likely also happen to us.
Yeah.
So intermittent fasting might have an anti-aging effect on your brain cells, thereby preventing the onset of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease.
I've generally assumed that chronic diseases such as Parkinson's, heart disease, and diabetes all occur at the later stage of life as we get older. And rightfully so, because most patients with chronic disease are 65 years and older.